Domestic violence is a very important and sensitive issue, but why don't we pay attention to it when the victims are men? Hey guys, my name is Jamil Sr. and actually a couple of years ago I was in a relationship where I was a victim of domestic violence. I met this girl, I was in a relationship with her. We decided to live together, we worked together, we did everything together, and we spent most of our time together. But after a certain while, whenever we got into an argument, which became more and more frequent, she would quickly lose her temper, and when she did, she would become very, very abusive. Now, I don't share this with you in order for you to feel sorry for me. I share this with you because I think it's important that we understand and we start paying attention to the male side of domestic violence. Because so many times, whenever I talked about this, it was sort of just, oh, that's too bad that it happened to you, but I sort of just got a pat on the back and not much else. It felt very, very isolating. It felt lonely. It felt like nobody cared what happened to me. It felt like nobody cared if I lived or died. And so I think that there's so many men out there that are going through the same thing, that have no idea where to turn to or if somebody even cares about them. And so we need to start changing the narrative around male victims of domestic violence. Now, obviously, one of the biggest things that people often say to you when these things happen is, well, why don't you just get out of the relationship? And eventually I did, but it wasn't really immediate. It wasn't something that I jumped to as an immediate action. In fact, it took me years to get to that point. And the reason why is because it wasn't all bad, first of all. The times that were good times were amazing times. The times that were bad times were absolute hell on earth. It was surrounded by a whole bunch of other stuff as well. It was surrounded by the fact that she was extremely jealous and possessive, and therefore she didn't want me to have relationships with my family, with my previous friends, with anybody who came into my life before she did. So I had no contact to the outside world besides her and her friends, the people that she knew and she trusted. I was completely isolated inside of the relationship. I still maintain to this day that she is not a bad person. She is just not equipped to deal with things in a mature and adult way. But I don't think she's a bad person because of it. But she did this, and she did it in such a way that it made it difficult for me to leave the situation. It made it difficult for me to leave the relationship, because if I left the relationship, then I was starting completely from scratch. Had no friends, no family to turn to, nothing that was really going to help me and support me. Even the job I was at was with her brother. So if I left the relationship, I was probably going to have to look for another job. I was going to have to start all over again in terms of relationships, in terms of career, in terms of everything. So it wasn't really easy for me to leave that situation, though I eventually did. And what also added to this was gaslighting. Whenever I brought up or called her out on her abusive behavior, it was always my problem. It was always something that I did. It was always something that I had coming, or that I made her angry, or that I created the situation that made her angry, and therefore I had it coming. And so it sort of left me in a spot, and I know that was bullshit as well, but it left me in a spot where I was sort of damned if you do, damned if you don't. And it left me kind of stuck in the middle where I didn't know if I should leave or I should stay. And I think there are so many people that are in that situation that feel stuck in the same way, that they just feel like they can't possibly make a decision, because if they do leave the situation, then they're giving up so many things, and if they stay, they're potentially putting themselves in grave danger. So it was definitely difficult for me to leave that situation, but what really tipped the scales was getting to a point where it was just enough is enough. It was just a point where I was not going to take another second, another minute, another moment of that abuse any longer. And so when I made that decision, it was just, you know what, I'm done. I can't keep doing this. I'm just out of the situation. And I ended the relationship and I stepped out. And yes, I had to sort of rebuild my life in terms of my career. I had to reconnect with my family, reconnect with some friends. And you know what? People welcomed me. It wasn't a situation where I was damned for life. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. But because I created this picture in my mind, it was so difficult for me to get out of there. And the other question I get a lot is, why didn't you go to the police? Well, here's why.
The men are in various states. I mean, there's no one size fits all. We've had men who were suicidal. We've had men who, came in here. They were extremely desperate. They had tried to get support from other agencies. They had called the police in some cases. I'm referring now to men who have been victims of domestic abuse or family violence. They call the police. The police ridicule them. Seriously, the police tell them that as the man, as the big, strong man, there's no way that they could seriously be in physical danger from a female partner. We've had dozens of men who report that. And so they come to us because they're in a state of complete desperation, totally overwhelmed, totally feelings of hopelessness. And we hear this over and over again. This isn't just one or two anecdotes. This is systematic, is that the police have a pro-arrest policy or a pro-charge policy. And the way they apply that is that regardless of the details, they don't ask any questions. They just take the man out of the house, oftentimes charge or arrest him for a crime, despite all the evidence to the contrary.
Even though he's the one who called the cops saying that his wife or girlfriend hit him.
The gender of the person who reports the incident appears to have no effect on the way the police treat the domestic allegations.
I was made very aware that if she basically broke a nail while hitting me, I was probably going to be the one going to jail. It was definitely a situation where most people don't care if it happens to you. Most people don't really respond the way they should when you're being abused as a man, because they believe that you should be able to handle it or that it doesn't happen to men. And it's also a situation where the law is set up in a way where it doesn't really protect men at all.
Brown and also Henning and what is with all these complicated names? Renoyer, I don't even know, found that men compared to female offenders were likely to be arrested. They are also treated more harshly by the criminal justice system. Brown found that in the case where only the male partner was injured, the female was charged in 60.2% of cases. However, when the female partner was injured, the male was charged 91.1% of the time. In no injury cases, the male was charged 52.5% of the time, and the female was charged 13.2% of the time. Gee, doesn't feel like the criminal justice system is skewed at all.
And I think one of the biggest problems that generates this sort of bias against men when it comes to the law is the culture that we have around this subject. So often, and in fact, I used to be one of these people, we believe that domestic violence is something that only happens to women, that men are only the abusers, never the victims, and women are only the victims, never the abusers. So we believe as a society that this is the case, and for that reason, whenever we hear domestic violence, we immediately think of a man abusing a woman. We never think of it going the other way around. But we are all human beings. We're all capable of great things, and we're also capable of terrible things, both men and women. It's not exclusive to one gender. It's something that covers everybody. It's a human thing.
Australia really needs to have this conversation. Where women were many decades ago in terms of the silent phenomena of domestic abuse is really where men are at now. I'm not sure if you're aware, our own Australian Bureau of Statistics, there's a statistic in there that 70% of male victims experience assault by a female perpetrator in the home. And that's a higher number than the female victims at 64%. Why aren't we talking about those numbers?
Well,
Because
how's a man going to talk about that?
Yeah.
But where's he going to go? Is he going to go to some authority and say, my wife is beating me or something?
Well,
they're not going to be believed, are they?
Well, exactly.
We'll take
This
them
is part of the
seriously.
social influences and the social determinants of health that we need to really put onto the table, particularly in looking at a national men's health policy, because of these kind of issues. The kind of abuse a man may experience by a female perpetrator, a woman's not likely to pack a punch the way a male would, for example, but women abusers, unfortunately, may be very good at sugar-coated viper tongues. So there'll be a lot of statements that are hit below the belt.
Like your dad's an idiot.
Like your father's an idiot, or you think you're a man, or you think you're good in bed.
Whenever women are violent towards men, even playfully, right, it's seen as kind of funny or cute, and sometimes it's even encouraged. It's like, yeah, you go, girl. Getting rid of the idea that as a woman you can just go up and hit a man whenever you feel frustrated or angry is something that's going to allow us then to look at domestic violence in a better way that is actually going to benefit both male victims and female victims.
No.
No.
No?
No comment. I don't know. No.
No, like I'm too easygoing.
No.
So then we decided to ask the exact same question to women.
Oh boy.
Hit them, yeah. Yeah. For sure.
You ever like done the little love tap thing where you just
More like a love slap in the face.
a what?
Slap dash in the face.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. Why is that not normal or something?
Jesus Christ.
Well, you just like frustrate me, piss me off, I get nervous, buff.
Definitely, it's happened. Women that I've been with that just, yeah, exactly that. The guy overly frustrated and like get mad, so just give a tap to as an answer, not really talk it out, which is kind of stupid.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it happened.
No, like you can't be aggressive towards.
Why not though?
Like female. No, I'm a girl. No. They better not.
Why not?
I don't know. I kind of have a double standard for that.
How so?
I feel like I just drop any guy who would even pretend to slap me in the face.
Okay.
But I'm totally cool with slapping them in the face. I've done that to many people.
This sort of culture around women always being the victims also leaves sort of a little bit of a subconscious understanding on women where they can understand that they don't have to check their own behavior. They don't have to pay attention to their violent behavior because they couldn't be the abusers even if they tried, because there's the size difference, there's a strength difference. And so if a woman hits a man, oh, you're not going to be affected by that. And so if you believe that, then you're not going to pay attention to your behavior or sort of hold yourself to a certain standard or a line where you don't go past that line, because you understand that once you go past that line, you're starting to infringe on that person. Understanding that this bias exists then allows women to behave in a different way. So oftentimes we see women hitting men, sometimes even playfully. I've had this happen to me. So many men have had this happen to them. And we don't even think about it too much, but this sort of culture is something that's widespread, but it doesn't happen from women towards other women. It just happens from women to men. And so the reason why that happens is because we have this sort of notion or idea that men should never hit women. And we should continue to have that idea. I'm not advocating for the opposite of that. But we should also include the idea that women should not hit men. People shouldn't hit people. Men shouldn't hit women, women shouldn't hit men. Nobody should put their hands on anybody for any reason, even playfully.
A friend of mine sent me a series of screenshots from a bunch of these different girl groups on Facebook where someone had asked, what is the worst thing that you've ever done to your boyfriend or your partner? Burned all his stuff in the driveway and then deleted his Facebook. Stabbed him in the leg. Burnt all of his stuff. You'll need some serious therapy. Nah, men need to listen. Anyway, there's loads of these comments on these pages, and they get worse and worse and worse. These are just a handful that I have saved on my phone for one such occasion as this. And the thing that gets me, really, this is the thing that gets me about all of this, is that women, for some reason, from some absurd reason, are applauded for this kind of behavior. And it's like, yeah, you go girl, yeah, you show him. You show him what kind of power you have over him by ruining his life and burning all of his stuff and trashing his apartment. You go girl.
I was taught if any man ever says anything to me that's inappropriate, I get to slap him.
I can't think of anything bad enough. And Hollywood teaches that lesson too.
The latitude that women get is more substantial. They have a greater free fire zone.
Catherine Q. Becker is accused of cutting off her husband's penis with a knife, taking his penis and throwing it into the garbage disposal. Police say Becker attacked him because he filed for divorce. She's being held. She goes, that'll teach him.
I don't know why he filed for divorce. I don't know what was going on between them. However, I do think it's quite fabulous. I mean, can you just imagine that thing whizzing around the disposal? It's like hysterical.
And of course, we've seen these sort of social experiments repeated over and over and over again of men being sort of abusive in public towards a woman and everybody stepping up to protect that woman. And then when you reverse the roles and it's the woman being abusive to the man, then everybody starts sort of looking back, or they start laughing at the guy, or they react like they're in support of the woman. And so nobody thinks to themselves, that man needs help. They always think to themselves, oh, he's a man, he can take it. But the main thing now becomes, how do we start to address this? How do we actually solve this problem? And I think that it's going to take a long time, and it's going to take a lot of effort, but it has to start at the individual level. It doesn't start at asking politicians to do something. It doesn't start asking governments or corporations to do something about this, because honestly, most corporations, most governments, most politicians don't really care about this sort of stuff, and the only reason they will actually care about something like this is if people care about this. So it starts at an individual level. It starts about men speaking out, just like I'm doing right now, speaking out about your experiences, speaking out about this thing affecting you, how it has affected you. And it also starts by women acknowledging that this thing happens to men as well. It starts by us being consistent when it comes to the discussion about the domestic violence, and not just looking at it as a female problem, but also looking at it as a male problem, and more so looking at it as a human problem. It starts with us actually acknowledging that these things happen to all sexes. And it also starts with us actually going out and calling out bad behaviors, not participating in that culture of women being openly violent or openly aggressive towards men. It starts with us calling out those things, and once we start paying attention to those things, when we start drawing attention to those things, then other people will see it, then governments will be forced to pay attention to it. Corporations will start to be forced to pay attention to it, and it can no longer be ignored. But this is just my opinion. Leave your opinion in the comments below. Please be respectful about it. Like the video if you like the video, subscribe to the channel, and see you guys in the next one.